But we have very competent economists now, even in the temporary government, and we're trying to solve the problem by putting up plans for development and for incentives to small private companies, and we'll be putting this plan on the table for the next elected government. So that's a political solution, because people are worried about their future, and so we will be responding with this plan that the next government could apply or not.
Then we have a question from, correct me if I'm wrong, but Swedish Defence Research Agency, Mikael Eriksson, over there. And you had a question about the women in the democratic process. We didn't talk about that, gender equality and such. Would you please?
عايز أقول إن يعني اللي كسر الحواجز الأمنية يوم 25 يناير كانت البنات قبل الولاد.
The people who just or the people who just broke all the checkpoints during the 25th of January, they were girls more than boys.
وإن نسبة المشاركة اللي حاصلة دلوقتي بالنسبة للمرأة في مصر نسبة عالية. إحنا المجموعة اللي بتكون الحزب بتاعنا الحزب العدل عدد يعني عدد الفيميل بالنسبة للميل عدد يعني أكتر من 60%، فده شيء إيجابي جدا يعني. وفي ميدان التحرير يعني عايز أقول إن اللي كان بيقود المظاهرات وإحنا معتصمين في الميدان كان بنات، سواء بنت محجبة أو مش محجبة، مسلمة أو مسيحية. فأنا أعتقد إن ثورة 25 يناير أعادت المرأة المصرية للحياة ولأداء دورها الحقيقي.
The women in Egypt, they broke all the checkpoints. That's okay, but always you come back to the women persons now with the gender equality inside Egypt, and you find out first, okay, they've been involved in the revolution. Second, their participations inside the political party increased so much. And just a simple example about our party, which is called Justice Party, that we are establishing it now with the youth revolutions people, that you can see that we have more than 60 persons from the people who's inside the party. They are girls, and that is a good success, and maybe that is a good soil for women inside Egypt. And come back to the revolutions. In the revolution, okay, they broke checkpoints, but they were all the time leading the Liberation Square, Tahrir Square. They lead everything there like everybody. So now I think that women just came to alive again inside Egypt. They got a new birth. They wanna be involved. They are involving now already. They are so active, and we want them to be in the new democratic view in Egypt.
And Salim, Tunisia, the same?
Yeah, for Tunisia, you probably know that Tunisia is one of the most advanced countries in the Arab world concerning women's rights. For example, a man could not marry multiple women, etc. We have a whole chart, a whole laws for this. It is called the مجلة أحوال الشخصية in Tunisian. So I don't know how to translate it, but it's laws for concerning status code, yes, personal status code. And now in Tunisia, there has been a little discussion about this, but it raised so much concerns from everybody that even the Islamists started saying we're keeping this status code. So this issue is very everybody is really concerned, and nobody could touch the status of the women's rights in Tunisia. So concerning the next elections, to if the electoral code, which is being validated right now, it has been validated yesterday by the Commission, and it will be validated by people in the government in the next days. Will be there will be elections using lists. Those lists will represent the Tunisian population, even in terms of equality of gender. That was proposed the Commission. So there will be probably equality between women and men in the electoral lists. So we were very concerned about the issue.
Shadi?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a slightly more pessimistic view in regards to Egypt. There was women activists in Egypt called for a Million Women March. I believe it was at end of February to coincide with International Women's Rights Day. And instead of a million, 200 or 300 people showed up in Tahrir Square, and a bunch of men eventually surrounded them and forced them out of the square, saying, "This is not the right time to advocate for women's rights. Wait until later," essentially. I think we have to be realistic about where the social mainstream is in a country like Egypt. This is a very conservative society, and gender equality in the Western sense is not the mainstream opinion. And that's why when there aren't quotas for women in elections, it's almost impossible for them to win in the Arab world. And that goes for Egypt and other countries. And that's why people add quotas, because that's the only way women can win. But if you put a female candidate and a male candidate, the male candidate will almost always win. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is right now. The question is that going to change now that Egypt has become more democratic? I don't think that should be the assumption, because as Mustafa suggested earlier, liberalism and democracy do not always go hand in hand. Egypt could be a democracy that is slightly illiberal, and that might mean that women still haven't reached the point where they are in other countries. And I think we have to remember, too, that in Western countries, it took a long time for women to reach equality, and even in some, there's still a sense that there's a long way to go. So this is going to be a long, difficult process, and it's not just about imposing quotas. It's about changing deeply held cultural attitudes about the role of women in public life.
Stefano, you wanted to go back on another subject.
And actually that's very linked. I think we've been talking about the Brotherhood quite a bit as a big actor. We mentioned very briefly the Salafis. I think today, talking about the future of democracy in Egypt, we should be talking about Salafis probably more than the Brotherhood, in the sense that we all agree around this table that the Brotherhood are part of the process.
Please, we're not very, like Swedish. Could you what is a Salafi?
So I'm going to go back to this, right? Oh. But just very briefly, I think we all agree that the Brotherhood is going to be part of the process. We all agree that the Brotherhood have the fundamentals to become a positive actor in the process. There's a generational gap. There are debates within the Brotherhood, but it's, again, as I said before, it's not going to be Iran. Some of them may think that they have more to benefit from the old system than from the new system, but none of them believes in in a theocracy anymore. That's not the Brotherhood. The Salafis are different, right? Those are probably less prone to, playing a positive role in democratic change. The Salafis have existed in Egypt for many decades. Actually, the first Salafi organization in Egypt was founded 2 years before the Muslim Brotherhood, in 1926. So it's a movement that's been around for a long time. The Salafis are much more religiously, socially intransigent than the Brotherhood. Intransigent. They are much more radical, socially and religiously, right? They're on a much more uncompromising line. They're much more focused on Islamic orthodoxy, on what is the correct Islamic practice. They're very close to the model that you would find in Saudi Arabia, right? This is where they find some of the sources of inspiration. The Salafi current has existed in Egypt for most of the 20th century, but it started developing very quickly in the last 10 years. One of the reasons why the Salafis became powerful is because one of the policies of the Mubarak regime was to support the Salafis against the Brotherhood. using them to neutralize the Brotherhood. And so the Salafis have gained increasing momentum, and you know, and today they are extremely popular. Many argue that probably the Salafis, you know, in the broader sense, have more followers than the Brotherhood, right? They, you know, people.
What are
who-
we talking about? Like how many? How big?
Well, you know, it's very difficult to know. The Brotherhood is 500,000. You know, the Salafis are not an organized group like the Brotherhood, so you don't have membership. So it's very difficult to know. But if you walk around Cairo and if you walk around certain parts of Egypt, you'd find that the Salafis, because they have distinctive signs, you know, these long beards that are not trimmed, right? The Brotherhood, you can see the difference between a brother and a Salafi. Brother would have a shorter beard, Salafi would have a longer beard.
And both would have.
Both would certainly
both would-
both would have this biba. This biba is not distinctive. The women, the Salafi women would wear the niqab, right?
Yeah.
They would cover their faces. The Brotherhood women usually would not cover their faces. Although you know, there's been a conservative trend within the Brotherhood who would advocate covering of faces. But this has remained kind of a distinctive Salafi
What's their
practice.
view on women's rights, the Salafis?
So on women's rights, they're very much, you know, against any form of gender mixing. You know, so they would advocate the Saudi model, right? No gender mixing. Obviously, you know, women cannot be candidate, cannot participate in the elections, cannot have any, you know, major social role. Women are advised not to work. That is the vision of the Salafis. So I mean, you know, it's interesting that the Salafis have you know, today benefited from the revolution quite a bit. So they were in a strong position even before the revolution. They didn't take part in the revolution because one of the reasons why the Mubarak regime liked the Salafis is because the Salafis traditionally refused politics. They said, we focus on religion, we focus on religious orthodoxy, but we're not interested in politics. That was very fine for the Mubarak regime. What the Salafis at the time of the revolution said, we're not participating because this is politics. But now the Salafis are actually becoming politically active. And 2 weeks ago, the main sheikhs organized a meeting to declare that from now on, the Salafis in Egypt are going to participate in political life. Some would argue that this is a positive development. In the end, politics moderates people. You know, when they start practicing politics, they may have to change some of their views. At the moment, you know, they are, what I see them doing is that they're benefiting from the evolutions within the Brotherhood. That is, the more the Brotherhood moves to the center, the more the Salafis gain followers from those who are disappointed by the Brotherhood's willingness to compromise. So, you know, it's a kind of a zero-sum game. You know, the Brotherhood are not alone in this religious competition in Egypt. And again, the more the Brotherhood moves to the center, the more the Salafis are going to win.
Can I just ask, Iran in all this?
Sorry?
Iran.
So Iran is, so the Salafis are very anti-Shiites. The Salafis
very
have a problem with the Shiites. So Iran and the Salafis are not related to each
It's
other.
nothing, no.
I don't think Iran is very influential in Egypt. Mubarak probably wanted this to be said because, you know, it was a way of fueling Egyptian nationalism, and, you know, but I don't think today that Iran has much. I don't know what Mustafa would say, but I don't think Iran is very influential in Egypt.
هو انا يعني انا عايز اقول على بالنسبه للسلفيين في مصر، يعني اللي قوى السلفيين في مصر هو نظام مبارك. النظام مبارك كان بيقوي السلفيين عشان يضرب بيهم الاخوان.
The regime inside Egypt they had the power because of Mubarak. So how Mubarak will let the Muslim Brotherhood down just and destroy Muslim Brotherhood? It's just because they just give the powers to the Salafit, so just they will gain more strongers to attack the Muslim Brotherhoods and to gain more members for them.
السلفيين لم يكونوا يمارسوا السياسة أيام مبارك بشكل مباشر، ولكن الآن هم يريدون أن يمارسوا السياسة. مشكلة السلفيين